Right. All right, 6 o'clock. Let's call this meeting to order. I know we're gonna miss Gabe. Is everyone else present?
Gabe and Corey.
Corey.
We have a quorum.
We have a quorum. Perfect. All right. Did everyone have a chance to review November's meeting minutes?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right. Any questions or changes, or can I get a motion to approve?
Approve.
Okay. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. So passes. Moving on to Organics Management Laws and Recycling Reform Act.
Hello, everyone. So I am Christina Kohlberg. I'll be giving that presentation on the organics management laws. Just give me 1 second here. Pull that up. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Great. All right. Okay, so like I said, I'll be giving this presentation on the organics management laws. So it'll be an overview and some updates. These are the buckets that I'll be talking about today, and then I'll be discussing some resources as well. So first, I'll be talking about the business organics management areas, or the BOMA. So this is the BOMA map, which was created in 2023 to identify areas in Washington that have access to curbside organic service. The areas shaded in dark blue have a local hauler and processing facility with capacity to collect more organic materials from commercial customers. Businesses located in a BOMA are required to divert organic materials depending on how much they generate. This started in 2024 with businesses generating at least 8 cubic yards, then in 2025, 4 cubic yards, and now in 2026, it is 96 gallons per week. Clark County is currently excluded from this map, and that's because the county submitted and was approved for a countywide exclusion request that highlighted the limited capacity of the transfer station. And so this map is located or updated every July. So next, talking about the organics recycling collection area, or the ORCA, which was passed in 2024. These requirements differ from the BOMA requirements because ORCAs are driving the collection of organic material in areas based on population size. So for the most part, ORCA requirements apply to cities and towns with population of more than 25,000 people. Starting in April 2027, businesses that generate 0.25 cubic yards or approximately 50 gallons of organic materials per week and all residential single-family homes located in an ORCA must have access to year-round organics collection. Year-round is defined as at least 26 weeks per year. This is voluntary collection, and the service must be available to customers if they want to use it. And by 2030, these same single-family homes and commercial customers must have curbside organics collection provided on a non-elective basis and include collection of food waste. So that's mandatory collection. All right, and so this ORCA map shows all the impacted areas in 2027. This was first published in 2025 and will be updated every September based on population data from the Office of Financial Management. These ORCA areas in dark blue look smaller than the BOMA area, again, because this law specifically is focused on more densely populated areas. So something that is special to the ORCA are brink areas, and they are here circled in orange on the current version of the Orca map. Brink areas, they're not currently impacted by the law, but are approaching that population threshold. These areas range from 20,000 to 24,999 people, and we anticipate these areas will be impacted by 2027 requirements and or the 2030 requirements because they're likely to continue to grow in the next 5 years. So this data is good for planning ahead. All right, so in Clark County, we have the city of Battleground and its surrounding UGA area, which is a brink area. And so the current population is just under 23,000 people. So Ecology estimates the area will reach 25,000 in 2031. So next, the law affords for the use of waivers to support a reasoned timeline to meeting the ORCA requirements. The first one we have here is a service waiver, which can be issued to jurisdictions or part of a jurisdiction, extending the timeline to meet the ORCA requirements. So this is not an exemption, it's just an extension. And this can be granted up to 5 years and can be renewed. Next for frequency waiver for jurisdictions who plan to meet the ORCA requirements in 2027 and or 2030, but plan to do so through an alternative method that reduces the odor, volume, or both of organics material collected. This waiver accommodates the different ways to implement organics collection in your communities, along with the use of emerging technologies. By using the alternative method, jurisdictions may also reduce the collection frequency to less than 26 weeks per year. And this is a one-time waiver that is valid indefinitely. And both are an application process. And on the far right, there's some information about guidelines that Ecology must develop. And it's to navigate individual customer exemptions from organics collection. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. So this is the service waiver criteria based on Ecology's organics team's interpretation of the RCW or the Reverse Code of Washington. The first is distance to an organics materials management facility is infeasible for the transport of organic materials. There's no capacity at the nearest organics management facility, transfer station, or reload facility to take more organic materials. Curbside organics collection is not economically feasible to provide or for ratepayers to pay. The jurisdiction is, and then lastly, the jurisdiction is constrained by the transport of organic materials due to the apple maggot quarantine boundaries. And then here for the frequency waivers, some examples of emerging technologies to manage organics is public drop-off programs or Dropbox programs, jurisdiction-wide development of food recyclers / dehydrators, and other methods not mentioned. Okay, so here is the ORCA waiver timeline. And so in 2025, the organics team developed the waiver process. Looking at 2027 requirements, jurisdictions should apply for either waiver in early 2026, which now that the waiver application period is open. For the waiver in 2030, or for those requirements, you would apply a year prior, so starting in 2029, and this would allow for a year to move through that waiver process. And so currently, Clark County is in compliance with the 2027 ORCA requirements. For mandatory collection in 2030, Clark County plans to apply for either or both waivers to extend the compliance timeline in 2029. This is because the transfer station doesn't have the capacity for more organic materials currently. All right, and then to talk more about those individual exemptions, we're currently developing guidelines to exempt individual residences and businesses from the collection of organics if they're handling it through alternative methods such as backyard composting or self-hauling of the organic materials. During last year's legislative session, some language was updated from jurisdictions may exempt individuals who ask for one to jurisdictions must exempt individuals who ask for an exemption. Ecology is developing the guidelines that can be used for this process or can be modified as needed and should be available this year. So another piece here is the BOMA and ORCAs are nudging the supply of the organic materials. So we have to address the demand side of it as well and the end market for the finished product, compost. The legislature passed a statute requiring jurisdictions with a population of 25,000 or more to adopt a compost procurement ordinance, or CPO, outlining their commitment to purchasing compost for their day-to-day operations when needed. This applies to cities and counties with less than 25,000 people as well, but have a UTC or that has a UTC franchise hauler that provides residential collection of organics. The CPO also includes public education. The local governments need to have a plan for telling residents about the value of compost and how it's used in public projects. So here we have the areas in the cities in Clark County that have CPOs, and then those that don't have CPOs yet. And for those CPOs, they have to submit an annual report by March 31st of each year. All right, to wrap things up, some announcements and resources. So we're hosting another series of organic summits in 2026. So this year, April 30th is for the Southwest region at Ecology's headquarters office in Lacey. That would be the closest summit for this group. And I have the registration link for those who are interested. This is open to the public, but we want to encourage representatives from cities or county solid waste departments, health jurisdictions, service providers, facilities, environmental nonprofits, and business generators to join the event and be part of the conversation. And for the resources, so there's recently been a released compost market study that has a lot of information and estimates on the amount of organic materials that the organics management law will generate, along with the end market of compost. The Food Center has finished a food rescue map that identifies potential food donors and hunger relief organizations across the state. And also for the Food Center, they have an upcoming peer network meeting, which is a collaborative space where community partners come together to share success, exchange best practices, and reflect on lessons learned regarding food waste prevention and rescue. And that will be March 31st. And with that, I can take any questions, or you can feel free to reach out to me, excuse me, or Delaney Carr, who helped prepare this presentation. She is part of the organics management team. So.
All right, thank you so much, Christina. Any questions for her?
I have one quick one, and that is with the siting that we're talking about for the fourth transfer station, is the capacity for organic waste and the issues that you've just gone over, Christine, incorporated into the guidelines for that particular site?
I I would actually throw that question to the county, but I would imagine, yeah, that it would.
It is, Mike.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I had one random one that caught my attention because I'm new to this group and learning. The apple maggot quarantine area.
That's a
Is
good
that a
one. though.
loaded question to ask?
It's a
What-
good one.
Okay, curious about that, but I realized we don't have. a lot of
We
time,
probably
so-
don't have an apple maggot quarantine issue here. It's gonna be
Yeah,
Yakima, Wenatchee, Yakima, Wenatchee, Omak, yeah.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I see him come back from my mom in Tri-Cities.
Yeah,
So you don't have to worry about it.
as the region expands, you know. I guess, you know, I had a, and I'm sorry, this, you know, I could just imagine, you know, please form your comment in the form of an answer, or excuse me, form of a question, and it's not, it's more just a comment.
Sure.
Words are hard. Had a long day. I'm just finding it a bit frustrating when you made your presentation. It appears that they gave the counties or the jurisdictions, if you will, essentially an out for just about any dang reason they can come up with. And I guess the thing that has me frustrated is I'm like, at what point do they just say, dang it, you know, as a state, we've decided it's important that you recycle, or that you compost, excuse me, that you compost, dang it, start a compost facility. And it just seems like, you know, I can only imagine, especially here in Clark County, there's gonna be a number of jurisdictions that they're gonna, and maybe I'm just, you know, I don't know, maybe I'm just thinking this too much here, but I can just imagine them going from one request for a variance to, one type of variance to the next type of variance to the next type of variance, just because they don't want to, get their ducks in a line and start composting. Yeah. I don't know, do you have any response to that there, Christina?
Yeah, no, sorry. I was just like, I was taking that in. But for me, I don't have a response to that, but I'm sure the organics management team could. So I can definitely take that to them and see what they come up with.
Christina, I can tell you what was shared with me. So prior to coming to Vancouver, I worked for a consultant firm, and I think they were looking at the organics laws that had passed in California and thinking like, oh, there's going to be all these facilities. And of course, to your point, it really didn't push hard. My understanding is that in order to get this passed, that was one of the compromises they made in order to get it to pass. And so it does eventually have those teeth. That's why the extensions end. But people would have resisted if it was just an immediate. So that's what's been explained to me. I don't know that that's how ecology would explain it.
And I'm sure that's what it was. Now, sorry, in full transparency, I'm also on the opposite side of that, shall we say, politically speaking. I'm also frustrated that, for instance, we went a couple months ago and we visited Dirt Hugger up in Dallasport, and they were telling me that the one major variable of why they cannot grow their business larger is they are capped by the amount of air emissions. The Washington State Clean Air Act. And so they said they cannot release any more methane. And so therefore they're capped. And I'm just sitting there going, as a farmer, I'm going, darn it, I see those organic materials, I see them as value. I see them as an asset. Let me use them. And that's when I say let me use them, I don't want that to sound like I'm claiming them or something like that.
That's that circle loop that they're making.
Exactly.
You're creating a product, and so you have the demand for it as well.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Sorry, Christine. I just thought I'd give you a hand.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah.
Are we switching topics?
Let's do it.
I'm going to shift you over. Excuse me. I'm going to shift you over from organics to packaging. Thanks for having me. My name's Kara Stewart. I work with Christina in the solid waste program at Ecology. I'm here to give you an update on the Recycling Reform Act. It'll take about 10 minutes. It's pretty high level, where we are, what's going on. There's a lot more to the law than I can cover in 10 minutes. But if you're interested, we have we did 2 long webinars. They went on for like an hour and a half because we just took a ton of questions. But the presentation portion of that webinar is available on our website. You can watch it. I hate watching myself on video, so I've never looked at it and listened to it. But it's all there, and we have some Q&A. We heard a lot of questions from a lot of people, and so we built a Word document that says question, answer, question, answer. So we did our best to get questions and some information to folks who wanted to get more details. So that's available. Yeah, sure.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Hey, I was just curious here, this Recycling Reform Act, is this what made its way through Olympia as something called the REPAC Act? Or it was called the REPAC or the REPAC as it went through a couple of times?
Yeah, it went through about 6 years of iterations. It was the Renew Act for a hot minute. It was the RAP Act for a while, and then it was the REWRAP Act for a couple of years. And it ended it came out of the sausage making as the Recycling Reform Act.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. I don't know how many of you folks have gone to the legislature and watched the magic that they do. It's frightening. But
magic.
magic. So I want to sort of start from the top. You were right. It's gone through a lot of iterations at the ledge, but when it finally came out last year in 25, it's the Recycling Reform Act. If you're familiar with the electronics program, the e-cycle, or the paint recovery program, Paint Care, Recycling Reform establishes an extended producer responsibility program where producers take responsibility for the end-of-life management of their products. Just like you can take paint back to Sherwin-Williams, this program will focus on packaging and paper products sold to Washington consumers. It'll cover residential recycling programs and government-provided public place recycling. It does not cover industrial, commercial, or institutional recycling programs. So the first thing, I'm going to start with this, and then I'm going to end with this. We have an email system where we send out updates to folks who are interested. The QR code on the left will get you to our email, and the code on the right will just get to our website. I've shared these slides. You folks will get them later, so you can also use the URL at the bottom. Sign up for the email if you're interested. We don't post a lot, so it won't be a lot of mess in your inbox, but we have a lot going on, and I'm going to cover that in just a second. And we've got 5 years of startup. So this program is going to take a while to get going, and it's going to take a lot of work from a lot of interested parties. With that, I'm going to walk you through this chart. We made this one graphic to sort of give you a visual of all the participants in the program. So starting on the top left are the producers, the companies that make the stuff you buy. Buy a pair of Nike shoes, Nike's a producer. Buy a can of soda, Coca-Cola is a producer. So those organizations have to join the Producer Responsibility Organization, or the PRO. They pay annual fees on the amount of materials they sell into the state. So how many cans, how much glass, how much plastic, how much cardboard. And those fees will be used by that PRO to fund the state's residential recycling system and, like I said, the government public place recycling. The producers join the PRO, which is a nonprofit, and they use those fees they'll pay for existing, improved, and expanded residential recycling service. The PRO has to develop a bunch of stuff, write and implement a program plan, reimburse service providers for costs, cover ecology's costs, create a reuse grant program, and a bunch of other things. The PRO plays a really large role in the program, but they don't register with us until March 1st. So once we have a registered PRO, we'll be offering webinars with that organization to offer more questions, and then they'll be working on the nuts and bolts of the system. There are 7 states in the US that have similar programs. We're number 7, lucky number 7. The PRO for 5 of the other states is called Circular Action Alliance, or CAA, because what's government without an acronym? They have called us and said they're intending to operate in Washington, and they will they've set up a producer registration system on their website to get companies to say that they want to be represented by them in Washington. So we'll hear from them officially in March, but we expect they'll rep for about 2,800 producers, which makes me always say, when you think of producer, normally my head goes to the grocery store, but it's not just the grocery store. It's everything you buy for your pets, for your kids, for toys, games, appliances, apparel. It's all these organizations all have to participate in the producer program if they sell their products in packaging. I've never bought anything without a package around it unless you go to the co-op. And it goes to a resident. If it comes home to you in your house, the company that sold it has to be in the program. There's some nuances on who in that chain of producer relationships is responsible, but in general, the brand on that box or that can is the responsible entity. So let's take a trip around this graphic. Way on the far right is the Department of Ecology. That's us. We are authorized to oversee the startup of the program. We have a couple of studies to do. Of course, we'll do rulemaking. We're registering service providers and the pro, and we do the official approval of the program plan. And there's a public review and comment period for that as well. We're also responsible for oversight and enforcement of the ultimate system that gets established. Above the pro and ecology is an advisory council. It's a group of 17 members. They just met this morning for their first meeting from 10 to noon. They'll be meeting probably at an every other month cadence. I'll go into more in just a second, but they will comment on all the startup and implementation efforts, and they will comment to the pro and to ecology and give us their input and feedback. So a little bit of a dip into the advisory council. Had the first meeting today. They are open to anyone who wants to attend, open public meetings. And we will provide updates in our email system. So again, I'll show you that QR code at the end. If you're interested, you can join. There will be a public comment option. There are people on the board, or excuse me, council that represent local governments, industry, nonprofits. So if you have a question or you want someone to speak up for you, there's a local government rep on the board. There's at least one county, one city. So there'll be an advisory council website where you can see agendas, slides, and notes if you missed something, and links to future Zoom meetings. They'll be basically consulting, reviewing, commenting, and making recommendations on everything. This is the advisory council. Ecology was tasked with picking the people that sit in these seats. There was a list in the law that said it needed a rep from industry, local governments, someone from tribes, someone from a MRF, someone from a hauler. So that's where all of these folks come from. We posted an ask for people to tell us they wanted to be on the board, and then we went through a pretty rigorous process of picking who got what seat. They all served for, I think, 2 to 4 years. So if you're interested, come watch. They're going to be we're going to dive deep into Recycling Reform Act. So that was the top row. At the bottom row on the left is the residents. We have estimated that there's at least 500,000 households in the state of Washington that don't have access to curbside recycling, that get curbside garbage service. This law requires if you get a curbside garbage bin, this program will provide you with a reduced cost recycling bin, paid for by the producer organization, by the producers, reimbursing the haulers. So if you're a municipal hauler, your costs will be reimbursed. If you're a WM or something like that, they will be registered and reimbursed by the pro. We'll also be creating a statewide list of materials. So I'm in Olympia. Glass does not go in my bin. When this program comes out, everybody will be able to recycle the same things in the same places. So the blue bin, my curbside bin used to be green. The blue bin will have the same list of acceptable materials. So hopefully the confusion when I visit my brother in Tacoma is gone because we can both recycle the same materials in the bin. It'll also cover Dropbox. And like I said, public place recycling bins. The law does require on the far right on the bottom that the material recovery facilities that ship stuff to end markets have to show us that they ship it to responsible end markets. In 2031, they have a certification process that they have to go through to ensure that what we are putting in the bin that gets processed, sorted, and shipped is going to, we know that it's being recycled, which currently Ecology doesn't get that information from all of our reports. So let me go to service providers. We wanted to dip in a little bit deeper into service providers, as this might connect with some of the folks in this room. Service providers, oh, this is such a statutory thing to say. Service providers are the entities that provide covered services for covered materials to covered entities. Oh, sorry, I have to do that every time because it just makes me laugh. So the covered services are the residential blue bins and the drop boxes. The covered materials are the stuff we put on the statewide list that can be collected and accepted. And the covered entities are residents, single and multifamily, and the public place recycling sites. So the service provider is more than just the hauler and the MRF. Governments can also be considered service providers, regardless of whether they provide curbside service, contract for service, or otherwise arrange for service. The service provider will get reimbursed by the pro for the cost of providing service. That's why this is really important. Any service provider that wants to be reimbursed by the program, which I said it's a long road to start. In 2030, the reimbursement starts. If you think you might be a service provider, but you aren't sure, get a hold of Ecology. We will help you figure it out. We have some local governments that are registering and some that are letting WM register on their behalf. So it could be, you could be in, or you could step back and let your service provider or your collection service register on behalf of your jurisdiction. So the pro will be working with these organizations during program startup to figure out the contractual relationships. And after January 2030, service providers will submit invoices and get reimbursed by the pro using the producer money. And it's a ramp up of reimbursement, 50% in 2030, 75% cost reimbursed in 2031. And then after 2032, it's 90% of the curbside bin cost is covered. So I will see a reduced bill from the City of Olympia for my blue bin. Service providers will need to meet performance standards that are in the plan. Ensure, like I said, materials are going to responsible end markets. There's some documentation requirements, and you have to show the reimbursement from the pro on my bill. So City of Olympia has to show me how much my recycling bin costs have been reduced from this program. We tossed in this summary because this is the data that service providers need to report to Ecology. We have a registration portal. I've not looked at it. Dan Weston is our expert in that space. It's an online registration. We've got, I think, 150 folks have put data into the system. Maybe 125 have actually hit the submit button. Turns out requiring registration by January 30 for last calendar year is a little tough on folks that don't have their books totaled up by January. So we're sort of a soft roll. We're hoping for people to finish their registration in February. This data will be useful to inform the needs assessment that we're contracted to do to identify current service. So the pro knows what increases in service need to have. I'm not going to read all of this for you, but there's a lot to it. I've seen snips of what the service provider registration looks like, and it's a database. It's got a lot of empty boxes that you need to fill in. And then here's a summary of what's happening from start to finish. I left 2025 off, so you can see the rollout. I'm not going to read through all of it for you, but what Ecology is working on is the statewide collection list preliminary needs assessment. That preliminary needs assessment identifies the current service, who's got a bin, who doesn't have a bin, where are the drop boxes. And then the second needs assessment will say, in order to increase the recycling rate to X, whatever that rate is, go from 40% to 60%, we need this many more bins, this much more service, this much education and outreach. So that first needs assessment is due this December, and the second needs assessment is due next December. What might be of interest to everybody here, aside from the needs assessment, is the statewide list, the one list that will satisfy all curbside bin collection across the state. That list is due to be published by October 1st. We have a consultant helping us with those 3 studies, and they, again, join our email list, and please participate. I would love to have glass back in my bin, or at least a drop-off, because Olympia just closed their drop-off. So I have a big bag of glass bottles right next to me. It's all pickle bottles. Just want to be clear, pickles and mayonnaise, not booze. So how can you participate? join our list, email list, so you can hear and see what's happening. Join the advisory council meetings, provide data if you're a service provider, participate in some data information gathering. Even if you're not a service provider, our consultant will probably be reaching out to make sure we get an accurate representation of every jurisdiction. So we'll probably be having some asks from folks in Clark County, even if you're not a service provider. Review and comment, reach out to Ecology. We are also required to prepare a comprehensive solid waste management plan amendment that jurisdictions can hopefully pick up and insert in their solid waste management plan so that they are compliant with the requirements of the program, so that your plan is consistent with the new lists and the new program services. And with that, I think I will wrap up here and take questions, and feel free to use your fancy iPhone to join our email list. And I've shared this slide deck, and you should be getting them in the packet of notes for everybody. That was a quick trip around the Recycling Reform Act. No
All right.
questions? No questions? Phew, good job.
No, just trying not to be first, but I'll do it again.
Go ahead, Mike, break the ice.
Go,
All
Mike.
right. This is all well and good, and it looks like, especially I'm very familiar from the packaging standpoint,
Yep.
That there are some of the materials that are being produced, and that they will be quoting tonnage being shipped into the state, are currently categories that is not recovered in current recycling.
Right.
The question I have, and it kind of piggybacks on Joe's concern about the organics, if there's additional things that are going to need to be picked up, we currently have 2 different trucks that come by for picking up our waste. Does this mean that Waste Connections would be required to expand its fleet to a 3rd type of vehicle to pick up? And then will the residents be required? There's nothing here about the consumer and educating and providing the consumer with the additional bins and sorting criteria necessary to offset the money that the manufacturers are paying for what they're shipping into the state. In other words, it doesn't seem to be designed to pull out of the system as much as we're charging the manufacturers to pay for what they're putting into the system.
Yeah, this is why I think participating in the statewide list conversation is really important, because that's going to determine what goes in the blue bin or the drop box. And those are the items that will be recovered and recycled. In my neighborhood, I can't do glass and I can't do cartons. So my milk carton goes in the garbage. If cartons and glass stay on the list, then my services in Olympia will be improved to provide me maybe with a separate glass bin. That's what the producer organization will be funding, and City of Olympia will give me one more bin. For the materials that, like the plastic films, the bags that people, you can't put bags in the blue. There will either be an alternative collection system. So you could, I take some of mine to Safeway, and, you can put them in that container out front. This organization will be under pressure to meet recovery rates for all materials that are recoverable and recyclable. So they may create an alternative, like a specific drop service for stuff like the plastic bags that you can't put in your blue bin. There are other things that won't be recyclable, like those aluminum foil trays you get with your microwave, not microwave, but your oven baked lasagna. Those are trash, and the companies that provide that packaging to us still have to pay into the program because their packaging is not recyclable. They'll pay higher fees. So it's complicated, and it's going to take a while to get from here to there. There's going to be incentives for companies to switch to more recyclable packaging. But yeah, it's a great question. And the added improved service, if Waste Connections has to provide more bins, more service, I don't think the intention is to buy more trucks, but if they have to, these will be producer funded, so that the costs aren't on the residents. Does that answer your question, or you've got something lingering?
No, I think that you've explained the complicated nature of the challenge.
Yeah, and it's a team sport, because we can't do this without the Waste Management's Waste Connections in the conversation, as well as the producers and the residents and cities and counties. So,
okay, thank you.
So I got one question for you.
Sure.
There's going to be an increased cost to producers. We know the producers aren't going to actually eat that cost. So
Nope.
how do we see this impacting the end consumer at the grocery store or the electronics store or whatever?
Yeah, it's a good question. We have Oregon DEQ did some studies a couple of years ago about anticipated in. So do you think your shampoo bottle is going to increase in price because this, the company has to pay into the program? It turns out when you look at jurisdictions where you have an EPR program for packaging and you don't have an EPR program for packaging, the costs are not significantly different. We did a little study in Washington about different stores and what that shampoo bottle costs in different stores. Turns out if you go to Safeway, it's higher than Fred Meyer. So there's price differences between stores that are bigger than any price difference between a jurisdiction that has an EPR program and one that doesn't, like British Columbia and Alberta, because they've had a program for 15 years in British Columbia. So when you look at the price of the product, you don't see a significant increase due to an EPR program. And here's my reason why, because producers don't sell Washington shampoo. They sell shampoo to the Western US. So Nevada, Utah, and Idaho are participating in the tiny little cost increase to fund the Washington and Oregon programs. So they spread that cost just like they would for marketing or medical coverage service for their employees. It's spread across their product line. That's my theory. I'm not an economist, but that's what I believe. I don't believe we will see an increase in price at the store due to this program. There is a requirement in the law that after the pro writes their plan, that Ecology has to do an economic impact analysis of the program costs to report to the legislature on whether there will be an increase in price to the consumer. So there is a requirement that we do an analysis of that before the program starts up. That report's due in 2028. Like there's a lot more to this law that I didn't get into my 10-minute slide deck.
I had a question. Is there anything that would prevent the producers to flipping it like we do with the glass bottles and that 5-cent deposit charge where they are kicking it back to us as their kind of own tax where, I'm from California, we have the deposit fee,
right.
The 5-cent piece. And is there anything that would prevent them on that shampoo bottle? Well, that's a 5-cent deposit fee. If you bring the shampoo bottle back, you get your 5 cents back, but obviously nobody does that. So that would be a secondary way rather than raising the price that they could.
I don't think there's any language in the law that says they can't do that. There is language in the law that says they can't put a non-refundable fee at point of sale for any of their consumer products that are sold in Washington. But if they wanted to choose to do a bottle bill program and put a 10-cent refundable deposit on their bottles, I think they could do it under this program. But we're state number 7 and no other state program has gone to a deposit system. I think it's a great idea, but you know how much cardboard we would get back if there was a deposit on it? You know how many waste tires would be recovered and recycled if there was a deposit on them? So, but I don't think that's going to happen under this program. There is another policy bill at the legislature right now, House Bill 1607, that is exactly what you're talking about, a bottle bill. So it's being considered by the legislature right now, separate from the Recycling Reform Act.
Kara, I had a question about, and I know there's still a lot of things that are up in the air yet, but how are they thinking about capturing this additional cost? Would it be through B&O or sorry, I retract my question. I've just got a lot of questions about how it would be enacted to a producer, and here's what I'm thinking: is a small producer that produces some item that is, ultimately an end consumer product, but they're back in Florida, whatever.
Yeah.
And I can imagine. I just have a lot of questions of, okay, if it's sold through, let's say, Fred Meyer's, does Fred Meyer's pay that instead of the producer, or anyways, yeah.
The producer definition in this law was a very contentious issue during session, and I think it's at least a page and a half long. So Yeah, I know. It's cuckoo for coconuts because they had to explain producers for a retail store where you walk in and buy something, your Safeway, your Home Depot, and for an online store, you know, the Monster, Amazon, or any other platform where you buy online, that packaging is included. And then it had to cover paper products, which is magazines and publishings. Like I had a conversation with Puget Sound Energy about their utility mailings. Their mailing of paper to their customers probably makes them a producer. Governments are exempt, so your PUD is exempt from that requirement. But the Avistas and the PSEs will probably be producers.
Interesting.
Oh, and in that definition, there's a waterfall, they call it, from the manufacturer who owns the brand to the licensee to the brand owner to the wholesaler to the first importer. So there is a requirement that somebody in the supply chain takes on responsibility. Ecology, as the enforcement authority, would be looking for the brand owner first, because I have no idea who the distributor or wholesaler is. I only know that the bottle says Jergens, and that's owned by, I don't even know who that's owned by. That's maybe owned by Procter and Gamble. So I wouldn't even know where to go in the other line of responsibility. But the program allows the producer of the item to work with someone else in the supply chain to take on their responsibility. The example was Costco water, Kirkland water, bottled water by Costco, Kirkland brand, is bottled by Niagara. Niagara is a big bottled water company, and they would be willing to take on the fee-paying responsibilities on behalf of Costco customer. It's a business-to-business relationship. So then Costco wouldn't be paying the fees, but Niagara would be paying on their behalf. And that's all arranged between the businesses and the pro. That's not an ecology arrangement. It's really complicated. We'll see how it goes. Oregon has stood up their program. Oregon's program started in July last year. So they're in the middle of year one. Colorado just started this month in January. We're 4.5 years away from program start. So hopefully Oregon and Colorado and Minnesota figure out all the kinks so we have a smoother start. If you have more questions, reach out. If you're confused, like in the middle of the night, you wake up and you're like, I wish I asked that question. Send us an email. We're happy to try and explain things.
Get right.
All right. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Let's move on. So program updates. City of Vancouver, Will.
Yeah, so I would just plug after that presentation to tune into those advisory committees. I did watch the one today. It was probably the least contentious. They were, building up processes and everything, but we will be hearing about this for the next 4 years. And if you want to do homework, that's where it's happening. As that rulemaking happens, I'm sure that there'll be some education and outreach, but it's just a great way to stay informed. So I just wanted to put in that plug. Also,
thanks for the plug. I appreciate that.
Also, Carrie, you obviously had a long day as well, because I did see this.
Yeah, I was there. To be honest, I didn't have anything to do, so it was kind of a soft day for me. But yeah, it was all administration. It was pick a chair, approve the charter, like a lot of that stuff. The meat will be coming in the next couple of rounds of meetings, and there's subcommittee meetings focused on particular areas. So there'll be a subcommittee just looking at the statewide list, which I think will be really interesting, like what's on and what's off. Those might be really great to have somebody in your group check in, and the notes will be available if you miss them, and you can check them out.
Great. So for updates, I would say, I think the other item to mention is I really appreciated Christina's presentation. One of the things that I wanted to update people on was that the city, the county, and Camas will be meeting this month to discuss those ORCA requirements, and especially around the waivers. As it was mentioned, the waiver, because of the capacity, the transfer capacity, is how we have been able to apply for those waivers. And so that discussion will happen, which kind of leads me to my next update, which is the capacity issue. Finally, the RFP for recycling processing is out. And why that's important for this discussion is that once that is awarded, that gives us the ability to remove the old MRF equipment at West Van. which will then give us the capacity for organics processing. So, moving forward, we do have a plan. We want to get organics out of the waste stream. This has been long visioned, and it's just taken, I think, a little bit longer than we were all expecting. Dates for that, there is a pre-submittal meeting on March 2nd. We really appreciate Josh and his team for inviting potential competitors into their facility to look at material, and that really helps the process. My guess is that there's not a lot anybody's going to gain by looking at the equipment because it goes away. It's really an opportunity for people to see the material, what the quality is, and things like that. And then, of course, the RFPs will be due on the 25th. So right now it's myself and Sarah Trader who are on the review panel. I am wanting to look up north to see if we can get another jurisdiction to join in. And then we do have a consultant firm that will have review proposals just to kind of give us any observations that they have, people that are familiar. So that's kind of where we're at. I'm happy to actually finally give that update that was submitted. Recycling Reform Act registration was due, as mentioned. We registered, I believe, Waste Connections registered, and I believe the county did as well. So obviously there's some double dipping in the numbers there. Ecology said we'll figure that out, but all three parties did register for that. Let's see. So this is really something. So the comp plan update with the City of Vancouver is happening. That changes some of the code that we have, and one of those relates to how we review construction plans for adequate storage space for collection. And so that's being updated. We've engaged Waste Connections with that because we want to make sure that our code meets the needs of their drivers, but also for the future development, especially around middle housing. To give you an idea, there was 464 reviews completed this year, so at about 39 per month. Middle housing will change that. So up until this point, we did not review single family housing. Single family housing, while somebody can apply, doesn't really exist anymore. And so now we will be taking on basically all housing for review. So we don't really know what that impact is yet. We're kind of keeping an eye on it, but that's just something to update. We expect that to be adopted by mid-year. It's supposed to go out for public comment, I believe. It's supposed to actually go out soon, but it looks like it's closer to the end of the month. I think last time I was here, I mentioned fall leaf coupons were going out, and that whole process has concluded. And of that, the county had 5,028 coupons redeemed. Vancouver had 3,970 coupons redeemed for a total of 8,998 coupons. So obviously a very valued program for the community. And so wanted to just share that now that that's over. And then kind of the big update is that Liz Erickson, who was one of our analysis with the solid waste program, is now the solid waste supervisor. So we're really excited that she has taken that role. Her position is currently open. We did our first rounds of interviews this week. So hopefully we will have an announcement at the next meeting regarding that. I think that's it.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Any questions for Will? No? Perfect. Moving on to Josh.
All right, just real quick, I didn't say there's snacks and stuff over there, so please help yourself.
Don't forget about the popcorn.
Popcorn, there's bathrooms out the store, if anyone needs anything, but yeah, appreciate everyone coming to the facility. It's nice for us to host and have you all here and kind of see what we do. This is our driver break room. It's usually a lot busier. This is nice for me. I guess just kind of big picture for Waste Connections, kind of mentioned it in some side conversations. We're seeing strong staffing levels. It's nice to see some big reduction in turnover. Our retention seems to be improving. I think a lot of the market has changed, which is driving that, which helps our business, which helps the community. Turnover, especially with the hauling operations, it's difficult to maintain operations. So I think that's been a nice change for us, and we have not done very many interviews for new hires this year and late last year. So not to repeat a lot of things, but I think Will and much of the presentation, a lot of our work right now is adapting to and planning for the future of these legislative changes around organics, RRA. Kudos to Bethany and the county team who helped guide people like me through this that needed a lot of help. So I think, you know, just a great partnership here that will make this work. It's a lot of challenges for our business on the private side. It's a lot of challenges on the public side. So I, you know, being in this business a long time and working in different markets, I really appreciate that collaboration, because I think someone on the presentation said it's teamwork, and it's going to be a fun next 4 years. So really appreciate that. So a lot of our work is going to be focused on that. We did submit the registration. So yeah, moving forward with that. And I appreciate Will mentioning the capacity issues at West Van. We are also excited that the MRF RFP went out. Obviously, Waste Connections is very interested in retaining that contract and providing that service to the county and the cities. So a lot of focus for us on that RFP right now. And yes, we are happy to host our competitors. It's unique, I will say. We'll talk about that.
It took a little while to get up the, you know, should I call? No, it can wait until Friday.
It took a lot to not respond how I wanted to, but no, super happy to do that. And I think at the end of the day, right, for us operationally, not only will that be a huge benefit for the ratepayers in the county and all the cities, but for us operationally, right? There are very few transfer stations in the industry throughout the country that house a MRF and a transfer station on the same roof. So for us, it's going to be a big win. I think just quickly on that, our MSA that we embarked on city and county, that drives a lot of those changes. And so we've begun working on some of the back end on expansions for all three facilities, which will also be a tremendous amount of work that ties to this, but also allows for more opportunity growth. I think we've talked a little bit in past meetings, and Michelle was sharing her experience at CTR. You know, these facilities we've just outgrown. We put, you know, double the volume or more through those facilities than they were built. So
It was a lovely experience.
I was a little afraid when you said you were there. And not for my team. It's a very busy facility, and we, you know, I'm super proud of Brian and his group over there for what they do accomplish for such a small footprint. So we're looking forward to those expansions. A lot of work on the back end, easements, some funding mechanisms that have taken some time to get in place, but I feel like we've got a lot of back end work, and now we can start the fun piece of the expansion. So I think that's high level. It's open to questions. I could talk all night, but I know I want to get out of here.
I just want to express my appreciation for what we have in Clark County with Waste Connections, that partnership with our transfer stations. Last weekend I was up in Seattle and had to go get rid of a recliner that my grandma could no longer use, and went to the Kirkland transfer station. And I'm expecting like a CTC or a West Van or something like that. It's a tiny little footprint, and you're zigzagging through to get to it. And then the actual transfer station, like, can only fit 4 cars at a time. And you got a back end, and you just kind of throw over a fence type thing. And they do it. But on my way in, what caught my eye was minimum tip fee was $40.25, no matter what you drop off.
Wow.
Okay.
You should talk to Derek.
Wow. So I know honestly, it makes me feel like we're spoiled down here, and definitely appreciate that partnership with Waste Connections. All right, moving on, solid waste enforcement.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you, we can't see you.
Hold on. Clicking the video button. Ah, there it goes. All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me here remote. Although I was tempted by the snacks just that moment ago, I almost got in the truck and wandered my way down there. Um, so just some quick notes here. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Sean Hawes, with Clark County Public Health. I'm the interim program manager for solid waste enforcement. Just some small updates here regarding our team. Those of you who have interacted with Jamie Searcy, she was with the Solid Waste Enforcement Program last year. Unfortunately, she is no longer with our program. She is now back to doing her position at at the Safe School program. So she's full-time there. Hannah Pludal is still going to be your primary contact for anything solid waste enforcement wise. And then we have another staff, Angelina Kochetova, who's going to be helping us out a little bit on that front as well. She's predominantly in our pollution prevention and assistance program, but will be spending some of her time with us in solid waste enforcement. Um, I'm still the interim program manager, as I just mentioned. They haven't gotten rid of me yet, so I'll take that for what that's worth. And I imagine sooner or later we'll have a permanent manager in the position. So otherwise, quarterly inspections continue and all that jazz. Any questions for me? Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Sean. Solid waste education and outreach, Sarah.
Gonna come sit at the grown-up table.
Yeah.
Share my updates. So given that we're kind of first quarter, I wanted to recap some of our efforts from 2025 and just share them with you all. So with our various programs and just run through kind of education and outreach by the numbers for Clark County. So our green business program recertified 12 businesses and had 3 educational events last year in addition to our green awards celebration. We Compost, which is the community hub program, is up to 17 collection sites and last year diverted over 93 tons of residential food scraps. Our composter recycler program has been undergoing sort of a transformation over the past few years with an emphasis on having active volunteers that are ready to do a lot of tabling and other activities for us. And last year we had 63 active volunteers. So volunteers who logged hours to support us through tabling at community events, supporting our composting programs, and then doing some other self-directed activities. We had a really great partnership with City of Vancouver with some tabling at the Marshall Center recently and some other kind of projects like that that have been happening. And then last year, Green Schools completed 26 site visits. And the big lift for Green Schools last year was launching Compost Academy, which I previously mentioned, a composting education program for high school students. So we had to do a lot of learning to figure out how to manage 20-something students in a classroom without a teacher present and all those things, and kind of teach them some leadership and some how to for composting and some career skills. And then I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and those are just some highlights. I mean, we really had a lot of great work, and I don't know, kind of like you, I could just keep blabbing all night, but I'll spare you. I wanted to speak to our multifamily program, which is a really nice partnership with City of Vancouver and with Waste Connections educators. And I have some fourth quarter updates from the Waste Connections educator that supports our multifamily education and outreach. And she is an all-star and she has a very, very challenging job. Contamination at multifamily complexes is a never-ending struggle. And I just want you all to know that she's really, really great at her job and very, very communicative with all the on-site facilities people and with us as county and city staff. And it's really amazing. So last quarter, she did 29 site visits and was able to deliver over 800 recycling guides for residents and 685 multifamily recycling tote bags. So those are sort of reusable bags that residents can dump into, they can use to transport material from their apartment down to their enclosure. And this year we have LaSWIPA, our grant funding to purchase additional bags for distribution, and we're working through some design elements and some things like that, with our partnership. And then, I also wanted to note just upcoming that we are anticipating an RFP release for our regional recycling tool, which you all probably know as Recycle Right. And the city of Vancouver has been doing an incredible job administering that contract for us and maintaining the system for our region. And it was decided recently that the county would be taking on that administrator role. And so we expect that RFP to be released next week. Good to see y'all. Any questions?
Oh, awesome.
I did have a quick question. Just
You missed your
curious,
chance.
complete curiosity. In those multifamily complexes, how do you encourage someone? I just don't see it. Okay, I don't see any way of encouraging them to recycle other than it's the right thing to do. I'm just completely curious on.
So one of the things we try to do is
Yeah.
remove barriers. So
Yeah.
by providing a container
Sure.
that isn't a single-use plastic bag that's gonna like contaminate the recycling.
Yeah.
And it has guidance for collection. The guides that are provided are in multiple languages, and so
Yeah.
sometimes it's accessibility. Another thing that staff works on is making sure that there are decals on the container. I don't know, like, if you haven't lived in an
Yeah.
apartment, you don't know the joy of like going into a smelly room where there's like
No.
containers, and then
Yeah.
there's like a brown one and
Yeah.
a gray one
Yeah.
with like nothing on them. And so
Yeah.
Steph has really been doing a fantastic job of paying attention to those little details to encourage. I will also say with our partnership, one thing that's been shown to be successful in other areas is having like an on-site champion person, like someone who lives in the apartment, to be like, oh, hey, like I can tell no one is doing this correctly. Like, and then, distributing flyers or doing door hangers or things like that, and identifying where there are issues with contamination. And so that is a new volunteer opportunity that we're launching in partnership with the educator team at Waste Connections, to have our composter recycler volunteers that live in apartments sort of be our eyes and ears on the ground to give us that feedback loop so that we can make those improvements and make sure that all the signage is in the enclosures and that everyone has the resources they need. And including, there are like informal gatherings at some of the larger complexes, and we're able to go and deliver our Recycling 101 class and other things like that. But I mean, at the end of the day, for multifamily, it's sort of like there's nothing different between single family and multifamily in terms of like what motivates you, like what are it's sort of like how do we reduce barriers and provide the information and make it as easy of a process as possible.
I won't waste anybody's time. Thank you. It just, I heard that and I was just like, oh my God, that's gotta be just not the worst job, but the hardest job. I'd be like, no, I wouldn't want to do that. That's incredible.
I have been in solid waste education for 20 years now. Now that I'm doing the math, that's a little scary.
Right.
And I had 2 opportunities to be a multifamily person, and it's a never ending struggle. I mean, it's like apartments tend to turn
Right.
over. There's like management turnover at different sites. There are all kinds of communication challenges.
Right. See, my force to recycle is you guys only give me such a big garbage can, and so I have to put something in the other can. So there you go.
It's contamination is a bigger issue, with.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, Joe, to your point, operationally, those are some of the most challenging properties that we service.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of it comes down to container space, enclosures that Will mentioned, the city working on. Yeah, it's definitely challenging.
Yeah, and
Yes.
if the trash is empty, they will put it in the recycle. They do not care.
Yeah.
And so kind of a quick follow on Joe's comment, got a quick question. Is there anything in building codes that actually addresses waste collection sites? Let's say every 4 units, there's an area, every 10 units, there's an area, so that people aren't, 30, 40 yards away from where they got to take their trash? Is there anything in building codes like that?
In the city of Vancouver, there is, I think Olympia might also have, there's a few cities in Washington. Coming from the other side of the river, Vancouver was like the envy of every jurisdiction because they didn't have code, and this is a reoccurring problem. And so it's definitely something that I was excited to find out about when I started that we're doing this. And again, it's getting updated. But that's the whole consideration is like, what space do you need for X number of units? How far should it be from the unit? What is the radius for a vehicle to access it? And then also, what does the future look like? So we also want space for organics, even though we're not requiring it yet. So, you know, it's also forward thinking.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thanks, Sarah. Now I'll pass it on to Joelle to introduce the newest team member.
I know, I got a little hint like, hey, you want to just bump it up? So anyway, I am not going to do any updates for you all, so I'm going to leave them for Sarah and Michelle. But I did want to introduce Michelle in case you didn't meet her yet. She's our newest solid waste operations program manager. She started on February 12th. I am beyond thrilled to have her expertise is already showing up in our team, and she's doing some great work, like learning. We're throwing a lot at her. So you're going to recognize her and see her all the time. And I'm probably going to still attend SWAC, but I'm going to be much quieter. I'm going to be much quieter. I try to be much quieter. But I'm going to leave Michelle to do the updates for the operations team and Sarah to do the updates for the education team. But I'll just kind of be on deck.
All right, awesome.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here. I appreciate it.
You're up.
Okay, I'm up. So right on cue. So we are recruiting for environmental operations specialist senior to backfill Tatum Flowers, who's in the position before. We hope to have someone on mid-February. So Tatum left my first week here in January, and so now, yeah, the recruitment's underway. We did interviews this week, so it's going well. The English Pit RFP for tree removal and well commissioning is at Clark County Purchasing with a release date of March 4th. The RFP for solid waste consulting and facilitation opened on January 21st. The RFP is to support related to public ownership of the transfer stations and the development of a regional solid waste entity. Our team is preparing for the upcoming HHW events in Ridgefield, New Hope, and La Center. And the Clark County, we will be going to provide an update on the recycling and yard debris contracts for the town of Big Colt and the center. So we're going to be attending their council meetings, which are next week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's your I feel I'm obligated to talk about reality to say it's not quite the same.
You've heard it both ways from people that didn't grow up here.
That's
Let's tell it like this. If I hear one more person talk about Yakima, anyhow, that
All right. Any questions on operations? No? Michelle, any updates on solid waste and recycling finance?
We don't have any updates.
No updates.
So
Okay.
the county does their financial close in January, so we really don't have new numbers. So it'll be next. We'll have a good report for you next time.
Perfect.
I think just plan on February. Won't have a lot of information. That's really valuable, I think. So we'll bring a good report to you next time.
I did have a quick question. Does it look like there's going to be any impact from the fact that the county did not fulfill their GMA requirement of having their GMA submitted by the 31st of December? Any direct impact to solid waste?
From my understanding, Commerce gave them an exemption because all the climate requirements that came in last minute to incorporate into that comp plan. So I think they're in the clear as long as they meet the June deadline. We'll see what happens. It's still looks like it's kind of iffy.
I have no comment. What's that?
Different meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
All right, does this location work for everybody? What do you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's pretty central.
yeah.
Are you sure you don't want to go back to the public health building?
That's never an option.
Never, no.
Well, yeah, and
I think
I,
Amanda brought some cookies. Yeah, I brought cookies. Remember?
No.
we are happy to host.
Oh, because you did GRME. stuff like that.
And so you
Okay.
just call it.
Yeah, you left.
Well, I don't know.
The first one,
I feel like
the first one was at BIA, right?
Yeah,
Before you
yeah,
actually
yeah.
were.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. Would you guys have two other groups to be here at this time, give or take?
Potentially, depending on the group.
No more
I guess.
questions asked. You're signed up now.
Well, and I guess just on that note, again, we're happy to host, I think. It's good to have people here, kind of see our facility, what we do. Today worked out okay. I think the 6 o'clock time frame, most of our drivers are in and headed home. I wanted to pose the question and see if 6 o'clock is desired, if there was a reason in the past that was decided. I'm totally open, but if we wanted to change to
Want to go later?
business
Later?
hours, not
10
later.
o'clock to 12.
Business hours, we can also accommodate that. So I thought
Cool.
I'd just throw that out there. And I know there's probably mixed opinions on business hours versus after hours, so
It's forecasted out well enough that
sure.
I can make either or work. But
I mean, I would like business hours, but also it's important for me to be here, and so I'll be where,
Yeah.
you know, whatever, so.
Is there anything that prevents us from changing the time?
Not that I'm aware of, just the bylaws refer that it has to happen during these months, and that's what's in our code, but the time wasn't written in our code. I think it was just an accessibility thing. And I think it was also to accommodate commission members who do work and then want to still participate. So
Yeah.
I think if the commission agrees to do it during a different time, as long as you all vote for it, that's for that. I mean, yes.
Can we get it in here around lunch?
They do have a really nice conference room as well, that
Oh,
it's,
nice.
it's, I think, I would say, put 12 people at the actual table, and there's plenty of space to have chairs around too.
And the other thing with this room, we designed this intentionally to be able to have other meetings. So well, the team has been in here before, so these retracting walls we can close. That way it keeps the driver traffic kind of outside these walls. So we're open, and again, I have no preference either way. I'll be here like Will regardless, but thought I would just throw it out there as a newbie on the commission. So
Yeah, I know there's a lot of other county commissions that operate during our, regular, daytime hours too. I think it's just really dependent on what the commission wants.
I'm still adjusting the council meeting at night instead of during the day.
and that, honestly, Will, that was a thought I had when I was thinking about this, briefly talking offline before the meeting. A lot of the council meetings are in the evenings, so
Even if it was a little closer, because it's the dead time between work and here, it's like, it's not enough time to go home. I'm like, all right, bye. Like, it just, it
even
is
a
awkward.
late afternoon, potentially to
Yeah.
4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock.
But I'll be here.
work our way up slowly. Yeah.
You guys did miss out. The community planning meeting went till 10 o'clock.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's-
And I have a little bias. We start very early.
Oh, right.
3, 4 a.m. But I'm completely
Well, if nobody else is gonna speak up, I would make a motion that we change I don't know about the date, but change the timing of the next meeting what do you guys say, 2 p.m.? 2 to 3:30?
May 7th.
Yeah, the same date.
Sure, same day, same time?
Well, it's scheduled for a 2-hour block, so.
Was it 2 hour block? Okay.
I'm just super efficient.
Of course you are. Of
Joelle,
course you are.
Joelle always texts me and says, what's the
Yeah.
over under on
That's why I'm
time?
right behind him.
Yeah.
I go to bed early.
There you go.
2 to 4 is what?
2 to 4, sure.
experiment, see how it works for
Yeah,
schedules across the board.
We'll
I
start at
second
2
that.
a.m.
Thirded.
4 a.m.
all in favor?
Aye.
Hey,
Oh, Jason, you didn't call for discussion.
Uh,
Okay, anyhow.
Sorry, I have a
No, no, it's,
proposal, I have a second, any discussion?
there you go. No, it,
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moves.
I will
So-
send out those invites.
Yes, perfect, thank you. Will that help
Great-
you-
Great question.
Mike, will
Josh.
that help you join us in person?
You asking me if it'll help me find a person?
All right, will it help you be able to join us in person by moving it earlier?
To be honest with you, yes, it would. Driving at night has become an issue. And so I've been doing this remotely because my wife would have to go to the meeting as well.
Yeah, I
So
think I remember you saying that, so that works out great.
thank you very much for that flexibility, folks.
Yeah.
And it's closer to Battleground than downtown Vancouver is.
Yep.
All right, so with that, I'm gonna call this meeting adjourned at 7:21. See you all, the next meeting, May 7th.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.